From that moment, basically, if I could find someone and they might have a house and it might be for sale or maybe not even for sale, if I could find their number, I was calling them.
That's the best. Thanks for tuning into the Highest and Best Use Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about techniques to optimize your land, structure, skill sets, and time, as well as the highest and best use principles to make your business more profitable, productive, and efficient. I'm your host, Ryan Carr, reminding you the good deals are found, great deals are created. And today, the one, the only, Mr. Michael Lee. Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Ryan.
This is great. So Mike and I actually go back, what did we meet, 5 years ago?
We met, I think it was 4 years ago.
4 years? Okay.
I think it was about 4 years ago.
It was we met at a Panera Bread.
Yep.
It was such, oh man, it was so cool. So we met at a Panera Bread. Mike was just getting into wholesaling at the time. I had done some deals. He was like, hey, let's meet up. Let's grab a drink. And for the listeners at home, that was pretty much the beginning of your career, right?
It was the beginning, the very beginning.
And then it just like exploded from there. So without me boasting about you and all the deals you're doing, Canada, US, virtual wholesaling, we're going to talk about virtual wholesaling, the highest and best use of that for your like dollars and time and all that stuff. Because I see there's some pretty cool stuff you're doing. And I want to get into that.
Thank you.
So for the listeners at home, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. So my name's Michael Lee. I got involved in real estate investing just over 4 years ago from Toronto, Canada. And essentially, prior to getting into real estate, I was broke. I was depressed. I didn't know what I was going to get into next.
Broke and depressed. Okay.
But I had some sales and marketing experience.
Yeah.
And I was really hungry for an opportunity. One day, I went to a real estate meetup. And I was fortunate that it was raining really heavily. And so the speakers had no one else to talk to except for me and like two other people. And one of the speakers had just completed, I think they had done a wholesale deal in Mississauga and made $70K. And they mentioned that specifically that they only worked a few hours doing it.
Yeah.
And my jaw was like dropping and I just dove in. I dove in like you dove off, like you're diving off a diving board in the Olympics, basically.
Yeah. And did you go right into virtual at that point, or was this more local stuff?
My first deal was actually virtual, but it wasn't intentional.
No way.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. I'm curious.
Okay.
Because virtual wholesaling wasn't a thing like five years ago. Like it's become a buzzword, right?
Yes. So I was lucky that I had a bit of help on my first deal.
Yeah.
So this person that I did my first deal with was the same person that kind of told me about that. They're the one that did that $70K wholesale. Because I didn't even have a buyer's list or contacts or anyone to even talk to about real estate to, except for him and his employees, right?
Yeah.
So his name's Luke Boyron.
Yep.
Fairly well known in Ontario.
I know Luke very well. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he basically that night of the meetup told me about wholesaling briefly.
Was this his meetup that you met at?
It wasn't. I think he was a guest speaker.
Really?
Yeah. Cool. And from that moment, basically, if I could find someone and they might have a house and it might be for sale or maybe not even for sale, if I could find their number, I was calling them.
That's the best.
3 weeks later, and I didn't understand how to underwrite deals either. And I knew this. At least I'm not a very smart guy. I don't like to think I'm like super smart.
Well, okay. It takes a little bit of brains to do a couple hundred deals. So you might be kind of underrating yourself.
I'm probably like average intelligence.
Okay.
But I knew that I didn't know how to underwrite deals.
Yeah.
But I knew I needed to get them significantly under market value. Right. So Kijiji was my main source for leads at the beginning.
Love it.
I hit up everyone, including people that weren't even, I don't think they were expecting my call.
Yeah.
But 3 weeks, and I was offering like 50K for your house, 100K for your house, numbers that are just don't even make sense.
Yeah.
But 3 weeks later, someone actually said yes to 50K.
No way.
And it was an abandoned house. It was north of Kingston, Ontario. I called Parker, he's someone that was working with Luke.
Yep.
And I said, I have a deal. And he already got probably tired of hearing my voice because I like called him so many times. And he's like, oh, you probably don't have a deal, but let's have a look at it. Then I hang up the phone, and about 5 minutes later, Luke calls me. He's like, lock up the deal. Let's do this deal.
Oh my gosh.
And that was my first deal.
That was your first deal. Yeah. So this was 5 years ago. You've done a couple hundred since.
Yes. And I met you shortly after I had done that first deal. It was maybe about a month or 2 months after.
How the hell do you go from one deal to 200? Bridge the gap. How do you do that?
Okay. So first things first, you got to learn. Fortunately enough, I met Luke very early in my real estate journey. I met people like yourself. Gary Hibbert was another one we just mentioned his name. So it's very important to build your network, and I got to work on my network right away. But second to that, I was constantly calling leads, and I used it. I knew I was going to get burned a lot of times, and I was okay with it. So I was calling sellers in like London, Ontario, or like Barrie or wherever. It doesn't really matter.
Whoever would pick up the phone,
whoever picks up the phone. And for the first 3 months, I would just be like, yeah, I'm in your neighborhood. I can be at your house and do a walkthrough in like the next 3 hours.
Wow.
And
you like jump in the car and drive down there?
And I knew it wasn't probably going to work out, but I wanted to understand how sellers' motivations work. I wanted to understand how to look at a property and understand when you have a deal. So for the first 6 months, I got about one deal a month, just like grinding my ass off. And
Mark, were you marketing at this point, or was it just outbound calls?
All the money I made, I invested a large portion of it back into marketing. About 6 months later, I got a deal in Kingston. The seller actually had a decent condition house, but outdated. It was a bungalow. It'd probably be worth a crazy amount of money now. And it was right outside the main part of the city. So it was on like an acre land. And he had a very weird situation. He got a job offer, him and his wife, and they had to relocate in 5 days. And so he said, hey, this house, he thought it needed a lot of work, but compared to what I'm used to seeing, it wasn't that bad.
Crooked, moldy, burnt, falling over.
It wasn't any of that.
This is not
outdated. So he said, hey, if you can do a deal with me right now, I'm just going to leave everything here. I just need to know that the house is done. And I knew it was a good deal. I put it under contract. I firmed up on it. I closed it and I wholetailed it. And all we did was literally just cleaned all of his belongings out and threw it on the market, and we sold it in like 3 or 4 days, multiple offers.
Oh my gosh. Can you explain what wholetailing is for anybody who doesn't?
Absolutely. So you take a property, you buy it off market at a wholesale price, and then you sell it at a retail price. You close on it. Typically, you're going to list it with the realtor now and sell it for top dollar.
Awesome. And how much work are you doing for a wholesale? Very minimal. Very minimal.
So this was so crazy. Okay, this is a crazy story. So the house was worth $275. I had an appraised. I got appraised at 273 or 275. I don't remember the exact number. And I picked it up for 175. So I got a loan to the appraised value of the property. And because I was a new guy and nobody knew who I was, I believe the mortgage broker gave me 60% loan to value, which was still like 195,000 roughly. So after closing costs, after the broker fees, lender fees, I think I walked out of the closing with like an $8,000 credit check on my first ever property purchase.
No way.
And I was still so new and I was still so nervous that when I showed up to the lawyer's office and I was signing the closing papers, I was basically shaking. So I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to go bankrupt or something. And that's what people had told me about getting into no money down real estate.
It sounds like a mortgage fraud thing, but it's not.
It's not. It's not. So that $8,000 credit check, what I did was I just paid some junk removal guys. They cleaned out the place, got a cleaner in the property, and then threw it up on the market.
That's the best.
Man. And then, it was so great. And then from there, the business just snowballed.
And so you sold that for a profit?
$70,000 profit.
That's amazing. So you bought a house.
It was the most money I'd ever seen in my life at that point.
You've gone from like buying a house for like $50,000 to now you're like making 70 on a wholesale flip just from cleaning it out and getting rid of the trash. Just because you were the guy that found that opportunity.
Yes. Wow. And so I was excited. I made a pretty smart move with that money. So I think what I did was I took myself out for dinner or something. I spent a little bit of money, but I barely spent on myself. Just a little treat. And then invested all of it back in the business. And from that moment, instead of picking up about one deal a month, we went up to, I think, 3 deals a month right away.
Wow.
And then as things progressed, it just kept going faster.
3 deals a month. That's 36 a year.
Yeah.
So were you doing this alone, or did you have people at that point?
So around that time, I was approached by someone who had bought one of my first deals, and he said, "Hey, I've been a realtor for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I have some contacts in the construction industry.
Yeah.
I also have some financing contacts. How about we partner together?" And we did. And he was kind of like the reno side of the business, and I was the sales and marketing. At this point, I understand what a motivated seller is. I understand how to market to motivated sellers. I understand how to get deals under contract at good prices, but I didn't understand reno. So he was a great partner at this moment.
Yeah.
It was a perfect synergy. And our first 6 or 7 deals, we like basically got home runs on like all of them consecutively.
No way.
So it was like a really great momentum for us.
Was he able to list them as well?
He didn't list all of them because he was local to Durham region.
Yep.
So if we, for example, had, trying to think of some of our first deals, we had one way out near Sarnia. We'll just get a local realtor.
Sure. They know the market. They know the people. They know.
Yeah. But we did have a few deals that were more local to Toronto, and then we would list it with them as well.
Yeah. Wow. So highest and best use. How do you convert what you were doing then to your business now with virtual?
Okay.
Because like to go from 1 or 2 to 36 to 200, like that's a jump.
Okay. Let's rephrase that question.
Yeah,
so you're asking me the highest and best use of
your business model now. So like you've converted from like you're the guy, outbound leads, outbound calls, sending a bit of marketing, spending money on that marketing, right? And now you converted strictly to virtual. So if you're virtual, are you doing the same strategies, or how has your business evolved?
Okay. So let's talk about virtual for a minute. And I'll talk about highest and best use of that time.
Love it.
Okay. Virtual. Virtual means I'm not going to the properties, but it doesn't mean that no one's going to the property.
Okay.
So typically what happens is when a seller calls us, I'm giving away a bit of my sauce, but it's okay.
Okay.
Seller
this
calls.
This is the secret. This is the dirt. This is it.
Just a little drop of the sauce. Seller calls us and they want to sell their property.
Yeah.
Now, if you build up a big enough marketing machine, you might be getting 10, 15, or 20 calls a day. So the best use of your time then is to not go to all those properties.
It's a lot of inbound calls.
It's a lot of inbound calls.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we basically say, hey, like we can come up with a preliminary offer. If it's acceptable, we'll put the property under contract, typically conditionally.
Yep.
And then we'll send someone out to the property.
Canada, US, both?
So far, I'm operating in Canada only.
Okay.
Although now I've actually got to a point where I'm looking at deals in the States as well, and that's just getting started.
Saw that on your social media.
Yeah.
You're poking around some fixer-uppers and some buildings and stuff like that.
I'm currently working on a joint venture for a 17-unit portfolio in Ohio.
Love it. Okay, put that on hold.
Not happening yet.
Virtual wholesale. Yeah. I want to hear about it all.
All right. So basically, we're gonna make. Let's say we get 15 or 20 leads.
Yeah.
We're gonna make 15 or 20 off. Well, maybe we might not offer on all 20 because we'll identify some of them are basically not qualified for us, and they should go with the realtor. That's like 95% of all of our leads.
Yep.
But the other 5%. We're gonna have an offer that they'll seriously consider, and we tell them that we're gonna put it under contract conditionally, right? And then they agree to it. Then we'll send someone out to the property who's not me. They'll get a full property walkthrough. We have it all systemized, so we have in the back end of my business, we have videos and documents that explain how we want the walkthroughs to be done.
Yep. What
kind of footage we want.
This is for your people like boots on the ground, or this is for the seller?
This is for my boots on the ground.
Like your staff.
But we also have some stuff for sellers too.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of just coach them on what's going to happen.
This is how it goes.
Train them on the process.
Some weird guy calls me up from a Craigslist ad or a Kijiji ad, and they're like, "Hey, we're sending people through your home."
So we'll do a walkthrough, and then typically we'll know within 3 to 5 days if we're going to be firming it up. Sometime sooner than that.
Based on condition comps.
If I like the property, so I first decide if I like the property as an investor.
Okay.
I'm not just a wholesaler. I like to think of myself as an investor.
Interesting.
So I think I actually like your ideas about highest and best use. Okay. So I'll for example, I'll give you some examples.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I pick up a property that's on like a corner double lot, for example.
Yeah.
I'm going to check to see if there's some development potential
Ah.
before I decide to wholesale it. and get rid of all my equity.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you could make a fee and make a spread, or just hang on to that thing for a bit.
Yes.
There's more options.
Yes.
I like that.
So what I can say about wholesaling is it's probably the highest and best use of time, because you can get from the point where you get a lead to actually wholesaling the deal.
Yep.
It might take a total of 10 hours of work.
Wow.
And it doesn't even have to be you that does all the work.
Right.
So,
okay, so 10 hours of work. Let's break it down into an hourly. I do this routinely with some of my activity. It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
It's so ridiculous. Which is why, like, it's not like, somebody makes like $80 an hour. Like, no, it's like you're making thousands of dollars an hour.
Yes.
For sure. So if you make, what's your average wholesale fee?
Should I actually say it?
Yeah. well, okay.
This year it's about 40 grand.
40 grand. Okay, cool. So
gross.
If you spend 10 hours to make 40 grand, or somebody spends 10 hours,
correct,
it's $4 grand an hour. There's no employer out there that could ever pay somebody $4,000 an hour. It's unfathomable. It's
basically unfathomable. And there are wholesales that are even greater than that too, right? So then it's just, the numbers become like insane.
Yeah.
Even the guys on my team, like we basically have commission structures.
Yep.
And the guys on my team are like, this is insane.
Okay, so let's talk about your team. How many people are working with you
now? We were up to 8. We're currently down to 7.
Okay.
But we're right now actually expanding again. I'm looking to hire in the construction space.
Okay.
In-house.
Yep. Okay, so full-time construction. So on the lead gen side, are you predominantly digital? Are you paper, like yellow letters? How do you do it? And who manages that?
Okay. Up until about a year ago, I was managing our online presence, and that's about 50% of our leads.
Sure.
I don't even work on it that hard. Like it could be way better, but it's good enough. Google ads, SEO is like the main. Prior to that, I had Facebook ads going as well. And like, these are like super simple advertisements. Like I was just a selfie video walking around in the neighborhood saying, I'll buy your house for cash. And we were getting at the time, we were getting like 30 or 40 bucks a lead. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Facebook's not as effective anymore. So we're mainly Google and SEO now. A year ago, I decided to outsource that. So we have an advertising company that focuses on working with real estate investors to do the Google ads. We do a bit of letters as well. I do a lot of networking. So when I get bored, like I don't know if I'm just a fidgety guy or what it is, but like I'll just start calling other wholesalers and being like, hey, so what do you have coming up?
What are you doing? Yeah.
What are you doing now? What do you have coming up? And sometimes you can pull some deals like this.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love doing that in the car. It's downtime. If you're in traffic, you're just sitting there. You're like, who can I call? Give me somebody on the phone.
Yeah.
Let me call somebody and say hello. Right? Let me call for a deal. Let me call for something. Like it's a good use of your time. You're just hanging out anyways.
It is. And I think I'm probably like a little bit, I'm a quiet guy.
Yeah.
And probably before I had all this, sales experience, I would just like being alone. But now it's just like a very natural thing. If I'm not doing anything, I'm just going to start picking up the phone and saying, calling people, hey, how you doing? And deals come from this.
Yeah.
They really do.
You ever done a disc test? Like the Tony Robbins disc test?
The disc test.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yes. And
do you know what you are?
I don't remember right now.
It's such
if it comes back to me, I
freaking love this test, man. Because it really breaks down. Like, are you a dominant personality? Are you a compliant? Are you very extroverted, introverted? Like I'm more introverted than extroverted.
Yours?
I'm a DI or an ID, depending on the scenario.
Okay.
DC or a CD, depending on the scenario.
Okay.
So like if I need to be in a leadership role, I need to be very dominant because people need, you need to be able to lead the ship. You're the maestro to the orchestra, right? But I'm on the compliance side. I'm very data driven. So like if I'm looking at a deal, I'm like you. I'm like, okay, what's the best use of this thing? Like, am I going to cut the land? Am I going to flip it? Do I have the time? Do I have the resources? That's all. That's just straight math, So from that perspective, that's who I am. I'm primarily introverted, but again, in the right settings, I'm an extrovert because you have to be. Like if you're platform speaking, to be an introvert might be challenging.
It is. This is one of the biggest things I'm learning now. I've been kind of in the shadows, not really getting out there. I can blame COVID, pandemic as much as I want. But I lately, if I go networking, I start meeting people. I know that they're on my buyers list because like I can see that they're emailing us.
Sure.
you know, and I know that they know who my company's 416 home buyer.
Remember for a while, I didn't think I was on your buyers list. And then I was on your buyers list.
You were on my buyers list.
Mike, you're not sending me any deals, man. He's like, go to your, for the listeners, he was like, go to your email, check your email. So like I go to my email and I 416 home buyer. Cool. And it was like hundreds of deals. There's like tons of deals there. Like, great. I didn't know. I didn't know.
So even very recently, I'll go out, I'll network, and I'll meet people, and I know that they're on my buyers list based on them emailing at some point. And I just meet them, and they'll say things like, "Okay, so what do you do for a living?" And I'll say, "Well, you know, I do wholesaling, I do flipping." Okay, but like, yeah, but what do you do for a living? Like, what's your job?
Yeah.
That's your side thing. What's your job? And I'm like, no, I own 416 home buyer. And then they're like, whoa, you're that guy. Like, it's pretty bad when your company's known, but you're not known. So I'm trying to break out of that a little bit.
Is it good or bad though? Because if you ever liquidated 416 home buyer, think about this. If you ever sold it, if this is like Mike Lee's wholesaling page, then you're attached to that brand. But if you're 416, you could decouple yourself and your employees could run it. Maybe?
I think if I was going to sell the business, it would probably be helpful.
Yeah.
But what I realize now is that way more opportunities come to you when you're getting yourself out there.
Interesting.
As a result of me just testing it out.
People like people.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? Yeah. Instead of just like some anonymous, it's like a bank. The bank doesn't have a personality, but the teller does.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And people are genuinely interested. There are some people, not everyone, obviously, but there are genuinely some people that are going to be interested in what you're doing. Yeah. So if you don't talk about what you're doing, they're never going to know about you.
Yeah, it's true.
They'll never work with you if they don't know about you.
So then your deals that you have coming up. So you've got some stuff in the States, you got some stuff in Canada, right? You're looking at highest and best use of some of these properties in some way, multi-unit. Break some of these down. How do these deals look? Okay,
so I recently made a 1-month trip down to the States, which included going to Tennessee, Florida, and Louisiana. Wow. I have several other trips, upcoming trips planned to go back to the States. Here's what I found. In Ontario, the market that we're in, flipping or capital gains based business is very, very lucrative here. I don't think I'm seeing the same type of capital gains down there. There is a market appreciation, of course, right?
Capital gains in what respect? Like the tax structure?
Appreciation, and you could go in there, flip a house, and it's going to appreciate like crazy.
Got it.
Obviously our market's going a little down at the moment.
Yeah, last 6 months, questionable.
Right? But, all the time leading up to last 3-4 years, you buy a property at a discount in Ontario, you're going to flip it, you're going to probably make decent money. Yep. As long as you don't mess it up. Don't mess up the napkin numbers.
That's right. That's right.
So you might not see quite as much appreciation down there, but the performance of the assets I found is pretty crazy.
Cash flow wise.
In comparison to Ontario with better laws.
Because? What is it about that? Is it just straight
cash flow? They cash flow better. The financing structures are a little bit easier, even if you're a foreign investor, actually, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
They don't underwrite financing the same way. Yeah. So the properties cash flow a bit better, and then the landlord laws in certain states are just way more friendly to the landlords.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Ontario's pretty tough right now.
It's
tough right now.
I've always tried to avoid closing on tenant problem properties. But about 2 months ago, I closed on my first property that had a problem tenant. They've been giving that seller hell for like a year and a half, maybe even more than that. So we bought it at a good price. This guy's 16 grand in arrears, and he's pretending to negotiate cash for keys with us for the last 2 months, and then we find out he was just stalling us. So and then now I got my paralegal. We're in the process of doing an eviction. And I asked my paralegal last week, how long is this going to take? And he goes, well, we'll probably get in front of the board in like 6 months. 6 months.
Yep. That's tough. I've got one very similar right now. I had an emergency adjudication hearing, which took 3 months to get. And it's been 2 months since that hearing, and I still don't have the paperwork.
Wow.
Back from the hearing.
Wow.
That was an emergency hearing for
I would like an emergency hearing.
Everybody would like an emergency hearing. It's bad when an emergency hearing is 3 months out.
That's a long time for an emergency.
That's some scary shit. Like that's not good, right?
Yeah.
So then where do you take your portfolio from here? And does it all stem from virtual wholesale? Like, are you only finding these properties through that means of acquisition?
Okay. So 80 or 90% of my deals are coming from wholesaling virtually. But what I'm finding now is that the more I brand myself, the more I get myself out there, the more I share what I'm doing, I'm actually getting some leads trickling into me personally as well. Yeah. Which is really exciting.
So people just see you on social media, at groups, things like that. And they're like,
correct.
Hey, I got this thing.
Correct. So I'm just in the starting phases of that.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you more about, like, I'm just getting excited to see how that goes.
I love it. Yeah. So then what is next for you on that front? How many do you dial up to? How do you grow this?
Okay. So buy and hold, I'm definitely thinking about going down. I'm already in the process of going down to the States. I've set up a corporate structure called an LP. Yep. I'm in the process of setting up my bank accounts right now. And I have people funneling me leads from the time that I spent down in those 3 states. Looks like one of them is actually going to be a deal right now for my first project. Yeah. I don't want to comment on it too much. I don't want to jinx it. And then as far as where am I going in Canada, I started to realize something, that if you buy $1,000 properties, you'll make $1,000. If you buy $100,000 properties, you might make, tens of thousands. Yep. If you buy $1 million properties, you can make millions. Sure. So I started realizing that a best use of time would actually be to go bigger.
Because in that same time span, you can make more money.
Correct.
Interesting.
I don't know if it's necessarily easier just yet, but from what I'm seeing, you might be able to spend the same amount of time on a deal that's bigger as a smaller one, but generate a lot more income. Yeah. So that makes sense to me.
It's like that in development. Whether you do 1 house or 3 houses or a building or 5 units or 25 units, whatever, right? Like the site plan is still the site plan. The grading is still the grading. The act of submitting a piece of paperwork, whether it's for 1 unit or multiple, is still the same. So that's
right.
Yeah.
So before we hopped on the podcast, you asked me what I'm up to.
Yeah.
And I said there's something that's top secret. I don't want to talk about it too much.
Okay. What do we have?
I'm only going to just skim the surface barely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if it doesn't work out, just getting my feet in the door. Yep. It starts the learning process. You become a little more comfortable. If it doesn't work out with this one, I'm going to do it again. So this property, it's a big property, multi-unit, it's cash flowing already, but it has zoning to be converted to a high-rise building, and it's in a major city in Ontario. Okay. So highest and best use, raise some capital, close on the property, and eventually hopefully get to site plan approval.
Cool. And
probably flip it then.
Really?
That would be the game plan.
So don't build it, sell the paper.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Highest return on time.
How many units are we talking? Or can you give me a range?
I can call it a high-rise building.
Okay.
So it'll be a condo building.
Right. Can you convert the existing rentals to condo?
No, but I believe the city would be supportive. There's a high-rise building next door.
Yeah.
So it's looking okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. I wonder if you ever thought about if you had an existing building and you built on top of that existing building, if you kept the rental units.
Oh man, you're messing me up.
Why? Should I not say it?
No, say it.
If you kept the existing building, right? I know nothing about this project. For anybody watching, I know nothing about this project. I'm just spitballing here because I get creative with this stuff. If you kept the existing building, a lot of condos right now are having a hard time carrying the cost of the building without jacking up the condo fees, right? Like my grandma lives in a building and they have to like refurbish the parking garage, or they have to like redo the balconies, or like all the shit, right? So if you had a couple rental units in the condo building that were strictly there to substantiate the cost of the condos, it might help keep the condo fees lower. Wow. If you can't convert those rental units to condo. If you can get the rental units to condo, they're probably worth more to the developer, but it might be an interesting hybrid depending on how that shakes out.
Are you saying just keep building up?
Keep going up, if you can.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe.
Why not? With the existing structure.
If it would support the, it depends on how many units and so on. Like if you're putting 200 units on top of a sixplex,
I think the building's like 8,000 square feet now.
Existing?
Correct.
Okay.
So maybe it has
wow.
some potential.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great project.
Well, hope we get to the finish line.
Yeah.
We're still in a little bit more of the preliminary stages,
Mhm.
but it's looking pretty good so far.
A couple final questions. Is there anything that sets you apart, whether it's wholesaling or with your developments that are coming up, that might be different from somebody else?
I would say the only difference between me and someone else, because I mainly am in wholesaling,
Mhm.
right? I don't let myself fall into just calling myself a wholesale. I identify as an investor,
Mhm.
right? I don't put myself in a box. I consider real estate like MMA.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to throw a punch. I want to be able to throw a kick, and I want to be able to get on the ground and grapple.
I love that.
So if a good deal's coming my way,
Yeah,
I want to be able to identify the opportunity and
Uh-huh.
take advantage of it, no matter what it is. Yeah.
That's cool.
I didn't make that up, so I can't take the credit.
Who else would be a great guest for the show?
I think, okay, somebody that is very young but doing a lot of great things.
Yeah.
Austin Ye.
Yeah?
I think that he'd be a
Okay,
great
I'll get
guest.
Austin on. I was on his show a couple times, once or
Okay.
twice. I'd love to have him here too.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's doing some amazing stuff.
We'll get him out. I just bought a deal from him, actually.
Really?
Yeah. He's got a new person on his team. And I called him. I forget how it went. I saw an email. An email came through, actually. I called him in like 2 minutes. I was like, hey, I want this thing. And he's like, okay, I know you can close. I was like, boom, done.
Boom.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that. Where can people find out more about you?
Okay. You guys can find me on Instagram at officialmichaellee. You can visit me on my website, 416homebuyer.ca/investors. It's investor show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. /investors. Shameless plug.
Uh-huh.
Join the buyers list.
Please do. Join the buyer. I'm on the buyers list.
Yes.
We know this for sure, for fact.
Yep.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the Highest and Best Use podcast. Don't forget, good deals are found, great deals are created. Like, share, follow, subscribe, and we will catch you in the next episode.